مساء الخير للجميع, and thank you for joining me this evening. I'll start my presentation in English. The work I'll be sharing with you today is away from any commercial architectural work. It's not client-based works. It's my way of answering questions through the tool of design and transient architectural interventions. These questions are mostly about my role as an architect and as an artist in my city, the right to the city in this landscape of transient urbanization. The works hold questions around inclusivity, architectural impermanence, as well as social and environmental conscious design. So I'll start with this photo, which I took in 2015, capturing this fleeting moment. A central yet marginalized neighborhood in Amman was partially erased to clear the space for a new highway that would attract investors and capital to the central area. The dust here renders what's left of it in white and inspired the title Island 861, How to Disappear. I'll be sharing some pages of this artist book I've worked on based on the research and data I've been collecting for the past 5 years about this place and the stories behind it. So Island 861 is a small informal neighborhood, which you see here on the right map. The map here is mainly the four corners of the plots of the city of Amman. So this small neighborhood sits in the valley that cuts Amman, as you can see, in two parts. East Amman, which is the most dense informal part of Amman, which you see clearly here highlighted on the right, and West Amman, which is a more planned area of Amman. Its informal name is Hayy al-Gaysiyya, which is named after the Gaysiyya family who first settled here as refugees in the 1948 after the Nakba. This is graffiti work that I photographed in 2015 on one of the walls by the edge of the demolition area. So this wall wasn't part of the demolition, it was by the edge or the periphery of the demolition area. Island 861 was named after the number that was given to that neighborhood. The whole neighborhood was given this number. It was planned as one whole plot and was never recognized otherwise. Although it had hundreds of properties, shops, even schools and families. It's an inland island, isolated yet part of the city fabric, marginalized, displaced, and now erased. From the period of 2007 to 2015, 117 houses were demolished, which you can see here indicated in black on the left, the black buildings. And more, of course, double of this number families were displaced. Compensation were given per building, which usually housed 4 to 6 households from the same extended family. So most of the displaced residents left the peripheral areas, left to the peripheral areas of the city. They're scattered between Rifayfa, Sahab, and Baqa. Because properties were there cheaper and they can afford it, and they can no longer afford the central area where they lived for their whole life. This Google photo on top right shows the empty lot after the demolition in the late 2015. And the last one below shows the highway, which is the existing condition now. This is a fabricated image I did showing the highway as a suspended bridge or a suspended street with its foundation superimposed, and here in this image collaged on top of an old view of the neighborhood. So this is a fabricated image, an imaginary scenario of the reality actually. This issue here is the up-down planning in the city based on the enduring influence of discourses of modernity, which have tended to conceptualize the city into binary terms, such as modern, traditional, urban, rural, and formal, informal. Thus, links are made between the perceived physical order of these places and their disorderly social character. So the official frameworks found it difficult to account for things and places that are not easily measurable. The marginalization of these places are derived from the view of these places as non-officially economically productive and therefore irrelevant in terms of the local or the global economy. These are also sketches to represent the space of otherness, which is how the Hayya al-Qasiyya were perceived by the city and how the locals also, the government and the residents from other areas perceived them as the other in the city. The residents themselves reached out for local newspapers throughout the years, TV programs and social media, creating their own iconography and slogans. This is one example, and they clearly indicate the concept of the island or the states, the fragments of the states. And since physical bridges cannot really connect these islands, I tapped into the intangible, which is a space of the radio, to create a new political imagined portal or great gateway, if you may name it, for the voices of the citizens. So what we did was an interactive performance, which we conducted on the site of Hayya al-Qasiyya. At the time, the streets were taking shape, manholes level are marked, as you can see. This was in 2015. And we occupied the construction site on Friday morning, so the site was empty. And we created what we named the Last House Standing, a radio picnic on the future highway, a radio intervention and a public event. So through hacking a local radio frequency, we broadcasted the stories of the remaining families, along with urban experts from the city. A space of resistance was created in a step to build awareness to the issue and empower the community to be part of the decision-making in all, and all of this is just in the invisible space of the radio. The interested audience were invited to join the event through their own radios in their own cars, or they borrowed one at the site. So we really activated the unurban, or the urban without the space, through the radio, through this political space that we created. This piece was exhibited in Madrid, and through the use of technology, which is the SoundCloud here, the QR codes, visitors, regardless of time and place, could listen to the recordings and be part of the story, which was mapped on a relief inkless print of the erased house's footprint. So radio really ignores us by ignoring the object and transmits through an invisible field of connectivity. And this is what I love about this irony of the concept of this radio. Another temporary intervention, yet a more poetic one, that was installed after the highway was constructed, so this is in 2017, also on the level of the invisible, was the Symphony of Emptiness. A site-specific installation made out of a series of wind harps aligned as a monument of fragments, resembling the power concepts of like the edge, the margin, the periphery. But once you move closer to it, you hear the sounds of the wind harps. Choreographed emptiness through the passing wind, an egoless symphony played by the non-existent or the invisible, which is the wind here. So the wind is really the conductor and the composer. So this is like a monument of contemplation, a monument of the absent, where the city betrayed its own inhabitants. I'll share a small video just to get a glimpse of the sounds was generated from the wind harps. Can you hear it?
Yes, we can hear.
Oops, I was just trying to put the volume up. Okay. So the next project here, or the next series of projects that I'll be sharing also, sheds the light on another space in transit, but this time it's a lost public space in Amman, which is the Ragadan bus terminal. It's a central space which has been over the past 35 years a major transportation hub, connecting Amman, the capital, to most parts of Jordan. Located next to the ancient Roman theater. This organic informal space, it was a very organic fabric type of terminal, sorry. But in the view of authorities, it had to be polished and formalized into a building structure. So in 2006, with the Japanese grant, a huge terminal was built over it, a central touristic hub with thousands of areas of retail space, transforming the urban public scene in Amman into a business and tourism spectacles. Yet it was never used and was left as a ghost building, abandoned in the middle of the city. The buses were even relocated later on to a new terminal towards the periphery of the city. And over the years, there has been a lot of rumors around what will happen to it. And here, this is a piece of work I did in 2010, using just the Tipex brush, the regular Tipex brush, and it looks a lot like the draping of Christo's work, which I love. So in 2016, I was lucky to be part of Amman Design Week first edition as a curator and the designer of the craft district. So we occupied this building, the whole terminal, the empty spaces, and we filled it up with shops for the duration of the events, with the craft makers, the designers, to showcase and sell. Also, food and music were part of the program, and tens of thousands of people visited the building in that period of time. It was a very successful event. A series of temporary installations filled the space around the abandoned building. So there was the colonnade, which you see here, the loom, the bridge, and the canopies, and finally the cloud. So I'll be highlighting a few of these. The craft district, if you see here, was spread over the upper floor, and of course none of this could have been possible without the support and help of the Amman municipality. These projects actually start in the city, in the street, between the public as rumors. Small talks between the vendor and the customer or the different actors behind it. And rumors are as ephemeral as the projects they are about, really. So tapping onto the concept of rumor, we use the orange tarp that is usually used as a construction material, or in the very first phase of construction, phases, to create multiple calling elements that is seen from afar that might also agitate questions and generate rumors in the public scene around the space. So a combination of scaffolding systems and the fabric were manipulated to create a series of towers or installations around the craft district. The colonnade is the first installation you see as the main entry of the craft district. And it mimics the colonnade in the existing building, but it's stretched to a 12-meter height structure. These are more images, close-ups, and the space from inside, and at night, the beautiful orange is lit. We also weaved the bridge. This is another unused limb of the building that connects the mountain on the other side, above the street, to the building empty structure itself. So it's not really a used bridge. So we transformed it into a tunnel or a portal. At the end of it, there's a mirror that faces you, which of course was a very hot Instagram spot for visitors. The third installation is the cloud, a suspended canopy inspired by the geometrical pattern that we see in our traditional weaving, carpets, tapestry. The canopy covers a central area in the district. So in day it offers shade, and at night it plays as a light installation. A play of color and shadows were also studied to create an animated pattern on the floors and the rich geometric cloud above. These shots shows the contrast between the stone of the building and the lightness of the tarp, the color, the geometries that has created. Okay, so this final large-scale installation was part of Amman Design Week 2nd edition, 2017. And as the Chief Design Officer for that year, we wanted to highlight another space in the city, placed in the heart of a dying public park that was vanishing year after year, slowly being reappropriated into a car parking for the buildings surrounding it. Shaped of a manner that resembles the Sail, or the Amman Sail, or the small river of Amman, if I may translate. And yes, Amman had a river, which you see here in the 1920s photo, which is a colored photo. It was buried ignorantly with concrete and asphalt under the area in the mid-60s because it was perceived to be to cause a health hazard. Ironically, this area is still called Ras Lain, a space that could have become really a nucleus of a vibrant urban space in the city. But modernity in that time was more about constructing highways and more roads for cars. So the Sail installation is a 100-meter long linear structure made up of 14 modular units, creating a temporary transient monument and the craft market for that year edition of Amman Design Week. So using the temporary scaffolding system as a skeleton, so it would be easy to really implement and dismantle in a very short period of time. And through manipulating the rigid system of scaffolding, the installation creates new geometries, new shapes that sway and break into the surrounding environment, allowing nature to spill back in what's left from the park and being part of it. The structure provides a semi-controlled shelter for the market by using lightweight fabric structure on the skeleton, creating plays of shadows, solid and void, and the masses. And within its 7-meter high interior void is a temporary pop-up craft market, curated food program, and design installations built in the form of a social space in the heart of the city. The shops were made of reappropriated steel bread cages, formerly used as cooling trays for bakeries. So folding doors and customized shelving systems were added to adapt for each shop requirement. A pop-up market was created. The doors, when open, defined each shop periphery, which you see on the diagram below. And at night, it's closed and locked for security. These are some views from the upper level or the drones of the Sail. And of course, it ran along the adjacent 100-meter hangar exhibition across the street, which is the main exhibition space of Amman Design Week, where the contemporary design elements or items are. And some images for the structure lit at night. The interior spaces, it was all very built with very dismantleable systems. It was all dismantled in less than 3-4 days, and the whole structure vanished after the event was done. So in that same district, there was a need for some social gathering nodes for rest, food, and workshops. So 6 units were designed as lanterns to give visitors shade in day, and at night they would sit and gather under the light. The pillows suspended above were built out of a tapestry weaved using white plastic plates, the usual plastic plates, that were layered to form an inverted lit vault. Each canopy was built using 1,400 plates, which is the average individual consumption for plastic plates in the coming foreseen like 5 years. So this is using design to create statements about human consumption, plastic waste, and these, the tapestry itself or the fabric itself is now exhibited in a small recycling museum in Amman. So now I'll be ending my presentation with this last project. Within the same concept of social and environmental conscious design, along with the concept of transience, Al-Sabil, the nomad pavilion, which was inspired by our native Bedouin tents, was created in partnership with my great friend and architect Rasim Kamal, and yet to be implemented somewhere and sometime in the future. It's under development right now. So I'll leave you with a 3-minute video to explain the project best. شكرا. Thank you.
شكرا لك على المحاضرة فعلا لطيفة الشيقة والمفيدة. إن شاء الله عندنا واحد سؤال وصلنا الآن خلينا نشوفه. السؤال بيقول planners in this case use their power of knowledge to impose their agenda, and this is another form of power that is an alternative of the state power. What do you think?
This is a comment or a question? I didn't understand it well. The planners lose their power to?
Yeah, I will repeat. The planners in this case use their power of knowledge to impose their agenda. And this is another form of power that is an alternative of the state power. What do you think?
Yes, it's both. It's everyone has a role, whether it's the government or the planners. And it's really, at the end, as you mentioned, it's where the power ends. Sometimes it's capital, sometimes it's politics, sometimes it's some agendas. So I think everyone has his role and his role to his own city, to give back to it in some way through proper planning. As I mentioned, this up-down planning is one problem. Planners need to be involved into the fabric of the city. It can't be done on paper. It can't be done on maps. They have to talk to the people. They have to be interactive with every single part of it. You know, sometimes it's just a tree, sometimes it's just a staircase, but every piece of the city is a monument for a person. And I think this fabric of memory of monuments should be kept, but of course not freeze it, not to freeze it, but to make it live for generations to come. Yeah, and my issue is it's not always about, it's not demolition, it's not the answer for change. Change can come in different ways, different patterns, and it shouldn't be just demolition and new construction. It's about looking at the small gaps in the city, the empty spots, these margins that are forgotten. These can be really new ways to look at planning and adapting. Yeah.
شكرا لك ونكرر شكرا ثاني مرة على المحاضرة الشيقة وشكرا على حضورك معنا.
شكرا و thank you very much really for this opportunity. It was really nice.
شكرا فيك.
Okay, great. Thank you.